Hi, welcome to this week's 101 Remastered, where this week you think we're going to start painting since we have our brushes and our paints and even our tub to clean our brushes. But we still got a little stuff to cover before we actually start getting our hands on certain things. Now once you have the miniatures and all these materials, you've got to prime your model. So right now we're going to cover how to prime, what to prime with, and where to prime. Where's safe, where's not safe. So let's get started and let's take a look at priming. Now there's a lot of different types of primers. The real high end are the Citadels, the Army Builder, the Valero. I mean, all the major paint companies make their own primer. But do you really want to spend $17 on some of these? I mean, I've seen them up to $17 for a can of spray paint essentially. The kind of stuff that I use and that works real good is making sure that you either have a flat black or, you know, depending on what you're working on. Like I have Citadel here, and I actually paid the money for a special type of red to do Blood Angels with. There's Rust-Oleum, which is very good, but make sure that it says bounds to all types of plastic. That really helps you out. And when you spray this stuff, you really want to make sure that you have proper ventilation. Make sure it says flat and not gloss. I've run into that a few times where I've made that mistake, and it really makes it hard to put that layer over. The whole point is to have a good layer that your paint will stick to, your acrylic will stick to. Then once you get all your paints on it, then of course you're going to spray your matte over it, which is going to protect it. But the most important thing is getting good coverage a lot of times with your primers. Now, a lot of people ask me, what types of primers do you use? Well, I use a number of different type of primers. Now, for instance, right here we have flat black. Now that's for like orcs and things in my mind, just as an example. And the reason for that is I want them to be dark and gritty. So when I put a layer of green over it, it darkens it down a little bit. It doesn't make it bright. Where if I use a white, which I would use on more bright colored figures, I would spray this on, and I really want the colors to pop in a certain way. Say somebody has a very blue cape or something, or a blue dress that is very, very shiny. I want that color to stand out on that figure, then I'm going to prime it white. Gray is also good as an in-between color because you can go to a lighter color or you can go to a darker color. It doesn't matter. It's kind of that in-between line that you can use. Now the black also is really good on armors because armors have a lot of depth to them. So when you put that silver or the chainmail over it, you can almost like dry brush over the primer and still have in the grooves, it almost acts as if you're using a wash. If you dry brush a silver over some chainmail, you'll keep that black underneath, which will stay in the recesses, giving that good pop that you want, because you want that armor to stand out and have definition, not just be a silver blob. So primers are very important, and the ones that you choose are very important, because remember, you're going to put paint over this. And sometimes if you try to put a lighter color over a darker color, it could take a lot of the detail out, because what happens is you have to put so many coats on it. Now for some things that's okay, especially when a majority of a model happens to be like armor or something like that, but you have somebody's face. You're not going to prime half and half, you're going to prime the whole model. So then you go to black, but just make sure when you put your flesh over not to be disappointed with the first layer, because the black's going to come through. And you want to make sure you water down your paints really, really well when you do that, so you can put multiple coats over the primer. Now, normally I would attempt the spray in here, but I don't want to get killed by my wife. Because spraying inside is a very dangerous thing. First of all, if you're in a closed area like this studio I have, spraying spray paint isn't the smartest thing. It's actually atomized particles, and that's going to get in your lungs, and it's going to really make you sick if you breathe it too long. So the best thing to do is try to to spray outside. Now, that also brings up some challenges. On windy days, you know, you've got sand blowing around, leaves, and you really don't want to spray paint on something and then have sand get all over your miniatures, because then you really have a battle. So the most important thing is to make a station. And let's go take a look on how to do that, because it's very, very easy and really doesn't cost you anything. Okay, as you can see here, all I got myself is a toner box, but you can use any box. I just like these because they come in with a little handle here that is good for ventilation. And we're not going to cut the back here, we're actually going to be cutting in the front, and that is where we are going to get our ventilation from. So what we do is we take an X-Acto knife, and then I open up the slot, and I just, you don't have to be neat, just lucky. And then we cut down this side. There we go. Be careful not to cut yourself. That's the most important part. Alright. Then, voila! Instant paint station. Now we'll cut this part off, this part here, right along the edge here, because what we're going to do is we're going to use this to put our miniatures on. Muddy putty or any kind of clay or anything, and just stick our models on here. So when we paint outside, we have this thing where we have control of our miniatures, and we're able to turn them around and spin them without having to turn each miniature. So when we're spraying, we're going to be spraying right into here with the ventilation coming out. And these things are actually really, really good for airbrushing as well, another subject that we will be covering in the near future. Now also what I like to do is I like to take some tape and just put the tape here, and then another piece over on the other side here, as you can see, and that keeps our box pretty solid. So when we're working in here, and you can cut this down or trim this down if you like, and just so you can maneuver it and keep it in here. Now this also works really, really well for also airbrushing, because it has the ventilation in the back here, just like I had showed you, and we'll get the excess to come out. So when we go outside, this also protects your models when you're spraying and keeping at a distance. You can make a little mark to make sure that you're 6 inches away. You can actually measure. You could put this here, and then you have 6 inches away to work on your units. Turn it around and spray again. I'll actually show you how we do that outside. And when you're done, to keep from the fumes going, you just close it right on up. And if you want, sometimes I just put a little bend in it so it kind of just fits right in there, like so. And you got yourself a little workstation, so it keeps all the fumes and everything condensed into the box. And then when you're done, you pull out your miniatures. So why don't we go outside and take a look and see how this works. So as you can see, we have a pretty windy day here in Central Florida, which is kind of shocking. Now this is going to protect us and help us paint this guy with very little problem. And I'm sorry if you get a lot of wind noise. And as you can see, it's a windy day, so this is a perfect day to show you how this thing works. Now the most important thing is to shake up your primer. Then all I did was put a little muddy putty underneath here to to hold the figures in and then begin spraying. And as you can see, all the spray is going in here and not blowing all over the place. You turn it, and you want to stay about 6 inches away. And it's as simple as that. If you've missed any spots, just take a look, move it around, and as you can see, perfectly primed figures. Now back in the box, close the lid. And that's it for this week. That's priming, and that's all the one-in-ones in priming. Using a good primer, one that bonds to plastic, is flat black, and has good coverage, keeping 6 inches away, and having a good housing where to spray into is ideal for what you need to do. Now, with that said, that's it for this week, and we'll see you next week with the next 101, Remastered. I'm Rob Oren. Have a great week.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.